Howdy, Desert Boy here. This is like part 3 of a series of 5 videos that I'm doing, talking about, my opinions, my experiences, my thoughts, in reference to me, what worked for me, just trying to share with you a little bit. We want to follow all of our local, state, and federal firearms laws, ordinances, permitting, anything that's needed for training or permitting for CCW, concealed carry purposes, hunting, etc. So with that out of the way, let's continue. Let's talk a little bit about kind of travel and then maybe moving to a smaller city and a larger state with a smaller population in a smaller town, but still a city. So when I moved from Las Vegas, which is over 2 million people, right? And I did go out in the desert from time to time or travel over into Arizona or up into, kind of like central Nevada where it was more sparse. When I'm out in an environment like that where it's kind of wild and I don't know what I'm going to run into, I would carry probably either a full-size 9mm, with full capacity, something like my I'll use P226 Mark 25. It's a little more familiar to people than maybe the SP2022, but they're full-size 9mm. Or I would carry something like this. This is a Smith & Wesson 686 Plus. It holds 7 rounds as a revolver, and it's a .357 Magnum. Now, it's solid steel, much heavier than, and we'll check this one again to show that it's empty. Okay, then my Ruger and my J-frame 637. So these are both 357s. This one is like about 37 ounces. This one's 17. This one's all steel. This one's steel where it counts. This one here is 14, but it does not fire 357s. So anyway, where does that come into play? Well, you can pick ammo becomes important, and we're not going to get way into that, but if you're in an environment where you might encounter dangerous beasts or something like that, you're going to want some kind of solid projectile, usually not expanding. You get expanding or hollow point ones like FTX or jacketed hollow points, mostly when you're countering threats that might be the two-legged kind, as some people call social work, in a roundabout way, trying to protect yourself. And you don't want the bullet to keep on going because, you don't want anybody else to get hurt. When you're in the environment out in the woods or, in the desert or something, and you have something that's coming after you, you want something when it hits it, hopefully it will take it down because it's got enough power, like a .357 Magnum or higher. And it's also able to crush through, bone and things like that, like with a bear or with a moose or something like that. Now, normally you'd go a higher caliber than this, probably like a 45 Colt Plus P, 44 Magnum, 480 Ruger. There's a whole bunch of more powerful handguns, but always the best in those situations is going to be a long gun. In other words, a rifle, or 12-gauge shotgun with slugs, because they're enormous creatures. But, even when you're in a desert, you have the threat of coyotes and mountain lions and things. And, the other thing is certain types of projectiles can go through barriers, other ones can't. And usually the ones made for soft targets don't go through them as well. So anyway, with talking about that, let's talk about when I'm like in the city I live in now is a much smaller city than Las Vegas. And it's about 30,000, but it's the largest regional center in Montana and in the area. It's got all the big hospital facilities and all that. There's still downtown areas. There's still areas where there can be some undesirable folks that you could run into and things. So yes, I still do carry my Shield Plus. Sometimes I carry my 380, but usually it's going to be my Shield Plus or something with a capacity that's more adequate for protection if I'm going, say, downtown. If I'm in my neighborhood, if I'm in my house, I'm running down to the hardware store or something like that, I'm probably carrying something like this J-frame, just basic protection, right? And normally I will carry some kind of reloads with it, something like a speed loader or something like that. Or I might be carrying this one, either way. Usually I'm not going to be carrying the 357 ammo, but I'd be carrying 38 special or 38 special plus P or something like that. Everybody makes their own decisions about that for what they need it for. That's a whole nother topic. But sometimes I might carry something like this, but mainly that would be like, okay, I'm going to go down there, then I'm going to spend some time traveling around. We're going to go up to the woods, and when I do that, if it's not in the gun, I have a speed loader that has hard cast bullets in it, and those are made for penetration. They're made for heavier game and things like that. Just as protection. This is about the minimum that you can use as a 357 Magnum. And so once again, environment, I guess that's what I'm talking about is, you're traveling around, what's your environment? Are you in the city or are you in the rural, right? City, you want to, FTX, jacketed hollow points, out in the rural, you're going to want some kind of hard cast or other kind of strong bullets, that are not going to let you down if you run into an encounter you didn't expect. Are you going somewhere where you need better concealment? Maybe you don't want something quite this heavy, but you're going to be in the downtown or something, but you'd rather have you could take your Shield Plus, right? It's smaller, right? Or you could take this guy with 357s in it if you felt like you needed a stronger round, but just realize you have to practice. All these things we talk about, all these different weapons that we're looking at and everything, every time you have one, it's got its own what they call manual of arms. So you need to be familiar with it. You need to have 100% understanding of the safety features of this, the capabilities of it. You need to understand how it functions, how to load it, how to unload it, what to do if you have a malfunction, especially with semi-autos, but even with revolvers, things like that. Those are all things you have to learn in order to be proficient at doing EDC or everyday carry. So sometimes when I'm around, I have another kind of J-frame that sometimes I take. I don't, this is a different kind of J-frame. It's a very small J-frame. See that? This only weighs 11 ounces. It's even lighter than this one, right? This one happens to be 7 rounds of 22 Magnum, okay? Now, rim fires are not generally considered as reliable as center fire cartridges, but it's very light. Sometimes we use a pocket holster. It fits in there, goes in your pocket if you become comfortable with that. Some people don't like them with the hammers on them. They'd rather have the ones that don't have a hammer. That's got the concealed hammer. It's preference and so forth, but you want to be safe in any event. And so that's another way of dealing with it as your everyday carry evolves. In the beginning, I didn't do any pocket carry. I wasn't comfortable with that or any of that. Have different pocket carry holsters now, even for semi-autos, but it's usually inside the waistband, outside the waistband kind of thing. And we'll talk a little more about that in a minute, but just want to point out that you got to kind of look at your environment, and you got to look at, let's say you're traveling, like when I went from Nevada up to Montana, I rode my Harley trike. So I didn't know what I was going to run into. I was out there in the middle of nowhere, going up eastern Nevada. Who knows what I was going to run up against? I carried this guy with some sufficiently powerful loads, and I carried this guy because they can both shoot 357s and 38s. I carried them both. I had one was in a shoulder holster, and the other one was on my strong side carry. But because on a motorcycle, I got nothing to hide behind much, So I'm out in the open, and I'm on my own. There's a lot of places out there where there isn't really any cell phone coverage, so you just want to make sure you're being compliant, with all the laws and things you're going to be dealing with. And that's where we get into reciprocity and things. So I knew I was going to travel through Idaho, and I'm going into Montana. So now I need to make sure, is my Nevada carry permit sufficient? Do they have constitutional carry up there, or do I have to what places can I carry and what places can't I carry, Some places have real strict rules about carrying a gun in a restaurant that serves alcohol. Some places don't. So you just have to pay attention to all of that. So environment, once again, if you're traveling, make sure that you're in the environment you're in, you have the right ammunition for it and the right protection if you're going to carry. As time has gone on, I use other alternative things, like I talked about the 380 Sig Sauer. I also have a Walther, but it's a lower capacity. Sometimes I feel like with that one I have a shoulder holster for, but we'll talk about that here in a minute, more about that. And, I also use a caliber called 32 Smith & Wesson Long. It's making a comeback as 32 H&R Magnum and Federal Magnum with the Rugers and especially the new Smith & Wesson Ultimate Carries. These are all things you have to think about. What's going to be the most efficient for whatever your purpose of use, the calibers you want to have, the shootability, concealment, if you're allowed that, if you have your permit. So, and you have to practice. And the other thing is you got to buy ammo for all that, So how many different kinds of calibers do you want to have? How much practice do you want to do? Generally, if I go from an everyday carry that I haven't carried for a while, I make sure I go out and I practice at the range and stuff before I make that rotation change. Some people just like to carry one gun all the time, maybe just their 9mm. That's fine. Whatever works for you. You want to be proficient, comfortable, and safe with that and meet all your compliance requirements for anything you're doing with it. So, Sri Desert Boy always says, be safe out there, and be safe out there whatever you're doing. And then we'll go on now to what's my most often EDCs nowadays.